What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to part 3 of my Football Manager 2018 Wonderkids Shortlist series. Today, we are going to be looking at midfielders. But before we get started, just a few little things that I want to talk about. First and foremost is apologies for a little bit of a delay getting these up. I've been busy, obviously, with loads of videos on the channel. Hopefully, you've been enjoying all the content that's been coming your way. And the other thing that I just want to quickly address is the fact that people have been talking about the fact that 22-year-olds aren't Wonderkids, which I don't necessarily disagree with. I think the important thing to remember is Wonderkids as a terminology is fairly arbitrary. Some people will say it's a player under the age of 18, some will say it's under 20, others under 21. The main reasons for putting under 22 players in it is whilst they might not necessarily be Wonderkids in the opinions of everyone, ultimately they're very good young players that are worth trying to pick up if you can. And so I'd rather have a shortlist that has kind of under 22s or 22-year-olds than, you know, is lacking players, so to say. So yeah, despite the fact there are 22-year-olds on this list, there's also a hell of a lot of 16-year-olds, and actually there's a fair few of these to go through today. Anyway, looking at what I consider to be a Wonderkid anyway, the best ones, you got Marco Ascencio, age 21, probably the pick of the bunch, one of the best young players in Football Manager this year. I've seen him move to Man City in a few different saves that I've done just holidaying forward, go to City for about £70 million. So if you are one of the big teams, this is one of those players that I just say, I'm going to tell you now, just go and get him if you have the money to get him. He really is that good. Elsewhere, obviously, we've got Dembele as well, who has the exact same value. Of course, recently transferred to Barcelona, the youngster, kind of forced his move in slightly unprofessional terms, but in Football Manager, again, he is one of the big standout players, and I feel like Dembele, Mbappe and Martial kind of make a holy trinity of sorts, and Kingsley Coleman you could throw in there as well. The France kind of youth attacking setup is just a little bit funny with how good it is. But anyway, go through this list. Obviously, a lot of players you probably expect to see, the likes of Christian Pulisic. I know people are going to want to talk about him. Obviously, America's kind of hot prospect, a player who, I mean, is making a name for himself in Europe. Only 18 years old. Was very good in Football Manager last year. Very good again this year. Not a whole lot changed about him, really. Kingsley Coleman, who I already talked about. Obviously, Tolisso recently made a move. Down here, you got Ndidi playing for Leicester. A bit of an underrated player. But in Football Manager, he's rated very, very highly indeed. Of course, you can see here with this shortlist, there is 156 players. And whilst there are, you know, the known players, the likes of Ramadan Sobhi, who is a very good player for Stoke at the start of the game. If we just switch things around and look at real young players, there are some real gems here, such as Thiago Almada, who, as you can see here, 16 years old. I don't know how much Velez want from him at the start of a game. I reckon you could get him for about 2 million probably, which obviously if you're playing as a Premier League team, 2 million isn't necessarily the largest amount of money to fork out for a player who could be very good for you going forward. Yeah, let's just see if we can make it happen. Of course, you can cancel and exclude the sell-on fee clauses. Either way, definitely a player worth picking up for a few £1 million if you can. A few other players here who you might not know of, obviously playing for fairly high-profile teams. You got this guy, I'm not even going to try and say his name, Cortinovis. He's Italian, plays at Atlanta. I'm going to guess they want a fair bit of money for him. £3 million. So again, you know, there's a few 16-year-olds here that if you're looking to get really cheap players in early, definitely worth considering. So this guy here, Thuram, looks very good defensive player. Actually looks like he could be a pretty good centre-back going forward. Vignato here of Chivo. Can you approach to sign him? You can indeed. Doesn't look like he'd want to move immediately, but perhaps a player worth keeping an eye on. Looks insane, actually. 16 years old. Really kind of impressive looking polygon. Fairly professional personality as well. Looks like he could be a star player. Definitely a player who might be worth just checking out to see if he's available in your save. Anyway, if we go through here, you can see Juventus youngster here. Manolo Portanova. Again, he's available for approach to sign, although he has only just signed from Juventus. Looking at it, it looks like they stole him away from Lazio, which is kind of funny. Ben Woodburn, very hot property right now. Worth noting that with the shortlist here for midfielders, what I've constituted to count as a midfielder is any player who can play naturally in defensive midfielder, centre mid, centre attacking mid, right mid or left mid. The attacker shortlist, which I'm going to come and have coming up shortly, is left attacking mids, right attacking mids and strikers. If they can play one of those positions naturally, they'll appear on both. So in the case of Ben Woodburn, obviously he can play that centre attacking midfielder position. Of course, what is kind of considered an attacker and a midfielder in modern day football is so blurred as a line. At this point, it feels a bit silly trying to differentiate the two. But yeah, just to kind of clarify that there for people who might be wondering. Anyway, as we go through this list, this guy, Joe Rankin Costello of Blackburn, looks like a pretty good young player. Definitely a player perhaps worth considering Picking up, obviously, Martin Odegard, a player who was really hyped up. And, well, I feel like the hype's died on him a little bit since he's gone on loan, obviously, to play in the Netherlands. My understanding is he's probably better now, and like he should be more hyped up now than he was before, kind of thing. You know, people have kind of forgotten about him in a way. Obviously, played in the Eredivisie last year and did pretty well during his kind of spell at the club. But anyway, going through this, you can see more of these youngsters here. Wendel here, or Wendel, I don't know why we've made him German, but Wendel here of Fluminense, an insane box-to-box midfielder, probably one of the best box-to-box midfielders to try and pick up. Not sure how much money they're going to want for him. Okay, they want a lot of money for him, but still, you know, having these players on your radar is always kind of good to see. And it's always good just to keep track of players. For people wondering, if you're the specific kind of obscure younger players that you're wondering, why aren't they on the list? The reason probably is down to the fact that I have, at least with these initial shortlists that I'm doing, I've made sure it's only Wonderkids who load up when you select the bigger leagues. I know for some people, obviously, if you like to manage somewhere like Sweden, there's probably some really good young Swedish players who don't get loaded up if you're only loading, say, the English leagues or the English, French and German leagues, for example. So I've kind of streamlined it down a little bit, but certainly if there's mass outcry for an update to this list when the full game comes out, I have access to the editor, so I can actually kind of categorically tell you who the best Wonderkids are. That's something that we can definitely look into. Anyway, here, Shaylon playing for Sporting, looks pretty good. I don't know why I said Spawn, it's Sao Paulo. I'm just making up names. Of course, the German, well, the German teams aren't licensed either, but neither are the Brazilian teams. Ruben Neves, I know people are going to want to talk about this guy, of course, a very high-profile move to the Championship club at Wolverhampton Wanderers. Looks like an insane player. I think last year he had a potential ability around 160, which would make him certainly a first-teamer for a Premier League side, if not a kind of key player. But yeah, all in all, you know, this list is pretty comprehensive. There's lots of players who play for fairly high-profile teams initially, so you might have trouble kind of prying them away. But there's definitely some players worth, you know, keeping an eye on across this. Obviously, 156 players here in total, absolutely tons for you to get your teeth into. Probably the pick of the bunch that I'd say is this guy, Felice D'Amico. You can approach to sign him. Certainly if you're one of the big teams, you can approach to sign him at the start. I've done so on my Liverpool Let's Play save, of course. He turns into a very good player, and so if you are playing as one of the quote-unquote big teams, or the opportunity presents itself to sign this guy on an approach to sign, I strongly recommend you do it. I think on one of my saves, I saw him go to Chelsea. About 10 years in, he had a value of about £50 million. So if you can approach to sign him, I think the compensation is about 1.5 million. When you put it that way, it's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? But anyway, guys, I'm not going to go through all of these players. There's loads here for you to kind of check out yourself. I will put a download link down in the description for this shortlist, so of course you can check it out in-game yourself. There's loads of good players here, though, who are definitely worth kind of checking out. Don't know how many of them are going to be signable initially, but I feel like the thing with a lot of these younger players is you kind of keep an eye on them, and then occasionally some of them come available for really, really cheap. This guy, Ezequiel Palacios, looks really good as well. Great attacking player, very technical. Physicals aren't too bad either, although I think he'd be better suited as a centre mid rather than playing him out wide. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this video from me. Hopefully you enjoy. Of course, details down in the description of how to install these shortlists if you're having any problems, as well as the playlist for this series down in the description. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like. If you've got any comments, leave them down below. And other than that, it is me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.